This podcast is called Meeting with Friends because we're Quaker and we're friends, right? And our topic, the name of this episode, I chose Hymnals and Hashtags because instead of hymnals to hashtags, I feel like our church specifically is in the in-between of using hymnals, using digital, newer digital technology. But really what today we'll be talking about is the digital age throughout the generations. We have Jaden and Scott Derlick and Josh Cortez and me, Morgan Wagner, who is the host of this podcast. And this podcast is just simply a meeting together to bring up conversations about all things, but today especially technology in the church. And we are talking about generations past, present, and future, and discussing the good and the bad and where we think our place is in this fast-moving digital age. Jaden, if you would introduce yourself, we'll go in a circle and just introduce ourselves and tell us your role, what generation you are in, and what is your role at the church. What do you do here?
So my name is Jaden. I am Generation Alpha, and my kind of role on Sunday mornings is I help back in the sound room, help get everything ready, make sure all the slides are right, and making sure he doesn't mess up anything with his sermon or any of the
stuff. That's true. Are there any other roles you have on Sunday morning?
I do help in the nursery and in kids' church a lot when there's not enough help downstairs.
What about donut eater? That's a role.
I think that's about everybody, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Fair enough. My next?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Josh Cortez. I am the pastor. I'm a millennial, so in between Gen X and Gen Alpha, or Gen Z. And I do everything and anything that needs to be done. So not just Sunday morning, but throughout the week.
I am Scott Derlick, and I'm the clerk of ministry and oversight. I'm Gen X.
Yeah.
I'm not a boomer.
I know we don't have one.
And been a member here for almost 35 years.
Been a member here for almost 5 years.
Nice. And I'm Morgan Wagner, and I serve as our worship coordinator, and I am the clerk of missions. And so I do a lot of other things, I'm sure, but those are my two biggest roles. Our first question that I want to talk about is, actually, first I want to define technology. We keep bringing that up. What is technology? And the two definitions I pulled from Webster Dictionary is the practical application of scientific knowledge, especially in a particular area, a machine, piece of equipment, method, etc., that is created by the practical application of scientific knowledge. So when we talk about technology, I want that to be in the back of our mind, like applications, equipment, machines, whatever we use here, whatever comes to mind. But we'll go around and what is your earliest memory of technology being used in the church? Do you want to start?
Sure. I would think my earliest memory is basically revolves around the bulletin. Like when I first was in the church, I think they were typing it with a typewriter,
Nice.
And then maybe making copies, or they actually had this sheets that would generate, you could type that one and it made extra copies or whatever.
Cool.
And then, that switched then to computer use. So now you could design with a computer your bulletin and use different softwares.
Were they ever designed before that? Were they're like,
I think there was like
pictures or something?
Yeah, like a picture on the front. But that's basically, you'd come in and you would get your news about what's going on in the church every Sunday. And you didn't have, text or email to alert people. So, and then pretty much once email came along, then the bulletin started going away. So you didn't get that. Cut back on paper use, and you would get that
Which is
email. And
Why we
now
don't have
even
greeters anymore.
and now we even have
Yeah.
text alerts,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
can get stuff on text. So it's come a long way. I know over the years it was nice to get that piece of paper and see what was going on, but we do have a connect board also
Yeah.
that so to kind of keep each generation in, you can still take your piece of paper home. But that was one of them I think that
I like that.
has changed a lot
Yeah.
over my.
When did the
lifetime.
bulletin
Those
stop
info.
here specifically? I mean, because I
Before
know for, like-
I think around COVID,
Was it
yeah.
like
COVID? Okay.
kind of
So right
I
before.
think it
Yeah,
was
right.
before COVID.
right before COVID, I think we started going to the email.
Okay.
Because we actually had like a piece of equipment that did the bulletins, kind of like a copy machine, but not
It would fold them.
similar but different. Yeah, it
Yeah.
would fold them and do
Yeah.
all that. So we decided not to like get a new one of those and
Nice.
go to not having bulletins anymore.
I just remember finding them like places.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
All the time.
You would
Yeah.
always have them. Jade.
Oh, go ahead.
No, we can go this way.
Okay.
That's
I was gonna say I think so there's two that come to mind. Obviously, sound for me that's a big deal. Went to school to learn about that, and so sound has always been, as long as I could remember, like a technology that we've used. But the earliest, like when I think about tech on a Sunday, was the overhead projector with like the clear slides for the music. And so like we'd have someone who you'd have to get them all out, and then you'd switch them as different songs were going.
I vaguely remember that.
But that's my earliest. Like I remember being in charge of the overhead projector. It was a big deal.
Mhm.
What about
Okay.
you, Jane?
So, it's hard. I don't really, because I'm not even a teenager yet, so I haven't haven't had a lot of stuff to like. Oh yeah, I remember that. Like we're replacing that piece of equipment here at the church because, like, we've barely been at this church, and I don't remember any from our old church because I didn't really work with anything there. So the newest piece of equipment is probably the new soundboard we have right now, which is, I mean, like, I remember replacing the old soundboard, and like we were there on Sunday, and Dad was trying to show me how to do it, and I still barely know how to work it.
It's a pretty big deal.
I
I'm
mean,
afraid of that.
I'm a little bit afraid of it too.
it's very
I'm always
complicated.
afraid I'm gonna
Yeah.
break it. I tell you about that all the time. All the time. Mine is probably from the overhead projector to the like the projector that's up on the back wall that actually projects it onto the wall
Mhm.
through the computer. And I was trying to ask my dad when that would have been, and I think it was like when we remodeled everything that came out. So kind of like you, like I don't really remember it before, but that's always been there. And that was probably, looking back, the first like newest thing that.
Because did you share what
Came out.
generation you are?
Oh no, I didn't. I am technically millennial. I'm 1996, so I'm the last year for millennial. So
So a little
I
bit
probably
of a transition.
I'm right in the mid. Yeah.
So like even for Jaden and for you, I mean for me a little bit. I don't know church without technology.
Right.
Yeah.
In
Right.
some way, like you were
Yeah.
saying, you don't know. We've had all the things we've always had.
Yeah, and it's just like I used, like, when I was probably like a couple years ago, I don't know, like I wouldn't know that church didn't
Yeah.
have technology at all.
That's
Like,
wild.
when Scott,
Yeah, yeah.
I remember when we got our first computer in church in Chicago growing up. Like
Yeah.
that was a big deal.
I feel like we always had.
Yeah.
I don't remember how. I was trying to think back. Like I don't remember how the lyrics were on. I feel like I remember an overhead projector, but even thinking back, I'm like, where would they have projected it? So I don't know.
I mean, maybe
No,
was
we
it just
always-
hymnals?
Yeah, we always
Yeah.
pulled the
Oh.
hymnals out and
Yeah.
just they would say, turn the page. And in the Catholic Church, they would actually have a little sign, and it would
Yeah.
have
Oh,
like
yeah.
this is
This is
going
where
to be
we
the
are.
communion song. This
Yeah.
page the opening song is Paige, and it was
They still do that a lot, I think, at a lot
they
of
might.
Catholic churches.
Yeah, and so you kind of knew where to turn for those, and sometimes some of that would be in the bulletin.
Right.
Also.
Yeah. When you hear the word church, what images come to mind?
For me, I think of two places really. I think of this church and just worshiping with others, and then I think of the church that I grew up in, the Catholic Church, Holy Rosary. Just I could see the pews, I can see the front, I can see Jesus on the cross and the stained glass windows, and walking in and dipping the holy water, and making the sign of the cross. I mean, it's just because it was, part of my life probably till I moved here to Indiana. So I was a freshman. So
Yeah.
I will. We'll go this way this time. For me, when I think of the images, I would say pews too, because we've always had pews. And and stained glass windows, because that's and not intricate stained glass. Like I think of this church as
Like our stained glass windows
like
in there,
like they're colorful,
but it's not
and
like any design of anything.
yes. And I do think that when I think of church, I think of our church, because this is the church I grew up in, and I've been to other churches, but I've been to other churches that feel like the lights are dimmed and it's dark, and sometimes for a reason or whatever. But this, I feel like our church is so light and bright, especially when like the sun is shining. It's such like more natural light coming in, and I actually think of like not overpowering production and technology. I think that you have a lot of just like simplistic, I guess, simplistic, which I like.
Yeah, so that's a good question, and it's like because we've always been really close to our church, because throughout my whole life, except maybe the first 2 or 3 months, one of my parents had been a pastor at all the churches we've ever been to, and he was a youth pastor at our first ever church in Indiana. My mom was a children's pastor in our church in Wabash, and now he's the pastor here. So it's like just kind of coming on Sunday with my mom and dad, and they were doing their work, and also because now we live right next to the church, so going going and playing out front, and just like the church is just there. So it's just very close to the church, like literally speaking and hypothetically speaking.
Yeah.
Throughout like my whole life. So
like the church is your home.
Yeah.
And your home.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I hear the word church, what comes to mind is the corner that our church was growing up. I think of the tamal lady that we're pretty sure we sent her, like she built a big house back in Mexico from all the food we bought from her. I think of playing soccer at the park across the street. I think of the sanctuary that had like hardwood floors and a big stage, exposed brick on the walls. I think of like uncomfortable chairs that we would set out and sit in for half the day. I think about sleeping in those chairs after like the second or third service of the day. So a little bit like Jaden. For me, we grew up in the church, and so both my dad has always been a worship pastor, and my mom and dad have always led small groups, and so we were at church always, and church kind of became home.
I'm going to read this verse from Romans 12. One of the passages that kept coming up through this class, preaching with technology, was not conforming to the world, and also when Jesus talks about being in the world but not of the world. And so I just picked out this passage to kind of keep in the back of our heads always as we continue and answer some of the next questions. And it is Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So thinking about some of the technology that has been throughout the generations, and even looking forward into the future, when we think of these tech tools and when they were introduced, do you feel that they've changed the way that people worship or how they experience worship? And in what ways has technology been helpful or have been distracting? Do you want to start? Anybody?
Sure, I think it has changed in some ways. One maybe not good point is if somebody is watching church online, I think they're missing the experience of the community of just being a church body and having others to rely on. But in another way, if they're sick
or
if they're on vacation,
like they
or
have a
something
disability,
like that,
it's
that gives them an
easier
opportunity.
way to still hear.
Keep them a little bit connected if they can't.
It's a good way that it works, whatever.
Yeah.
So I would be in favor of it that way.
Yeah.
But not totally relying on it because you miss
the relationship aspect.
And I think like the Bible phone app is a good thing. I mean, some people that's the way they are learning it now. They want to get their iPad and read the Bible, where you still have the printed if you like that, and even like podcasts and just all the stuff you can get your hands on now that is available, that you have to be careful, but it's out there for you to learn more. Maybe before, I don't know how you had your Bible and certain books, but now you have a wealth of knowledge that you can tap into.
I think with like all things, it can be good and bad. I think there are pieces, like Scott and Jaden said, that can bring you closer if you're far away or not able to be in person. But I think there are also, it could become a crutch to not come to church in person. I can just watch online. One of my, being on a worship team for a long time and helping with production of that kind of stuff, one of my favorite discussions with folks is when they say like the backgrounds are distracting. I'm like, I don't know if that's just the distracting thing. I think maybe there's some other stuff in your mind that might be distracting you, but I understand what they're saying. And so, for me, as I make sure Sunday morning's ready, or as the worship team is working on things, like I want to make sure all of the technology we use is not distracting from what's happening in the sanctuary or in our own space. Like I think one of the best things my dad taught me as a worship pastor and growing up as a worship leader was we don't want to be a distraction to what the Holy Spirit is doing. And that can often happen really quickly in a bunch of different ways, especially with technology, because we want all the bells and whistles. We want all the things, the newest camera, or, and so, I think that it's good and bad. I think for the most part, if it's done well and stewarded well, it adds to the experience. It doesn't take away, but again, there's a discernment part there of how much is too much and what, I think for us here, my aim has been, I want to make it with a good enough quality that we can put it out, but I also want to make it where it's volunteer friendly so that anybody can just join in and jump in and help. And I want to make it least hands-on as possible so that as we have volunteers, they're not stuck behind the sound booth. They can jump in, help, and then maybe go sit down because the rest of it's automated, which things like ProPresenter allow me to do. And so I've tried really hard to make it where we're touching as least amount of buttons as possible, and then we set it and kind of forget it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think this could definitely go both ways, depending on your viewpoint or just really in general. And I feel like it has changed. I think technology's changed worship, no matter if you like it or not, because you're feeling different if there's a mic and speakers compared to people just standing up there singing. So I feel like there definitely is a change, even if you feel it, because it's different than what's happening without all the technology. So I definitely do think it's different. People could not feel it, but definitely is different, and it's helpful for a lot of ways, and it's also distracting because like Scott said, there's so much stuff, and kind of going in the podcast or like different stuff that you can listen to and watch because there's so much social media stuff now. You could get so many mixed opinions about a bunch of different things, and it's just like a little misleading if you don't know who the right person or what's the right thing to do.
When you were talking about like just the one button, I appreciate that. And because I think what is distracting is when technology doesn't work. And then you're just like, what is happening?
And most of the time here it does. Yeah. But there have been Sundays where we don't have a live stream or the internet service is out. And so then, we just keep going.
Yep, exactly.
Just keep going.
And sometimes people freak out, but it's like, okay,
it's like yes,
we'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be fine. But for a second, it's pretty distracting. And then you're like, oh yeah. And then you remember that, like, oh, we've done this before and it's fine. And some people like, not all of it. And so they might appreciate it.
And even I think you do a good job of this, and Aaron and a few others on stage, and I try to do a good job. But like, if something goes wrong, I'm trying to do it less because I do it a lot. I don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I just make the switch.
Yes.
There's been Sundays where my mic is like crackling, and so I just grab another mic, turn it on, and switch. I don't even address it. And so, that's hard to do too, because I'm sure it throws you off, or it throws whoever off, leading.
Battery goes out.
Yeah, but all that stuff. So it's all, it is what it is.
Yeah. It's technology.
Absolutely.
Right? So even before COVID, we saw hybrid churches start to take place through the pandemic and after, and we've seen people stay hybrid. Do you think this shift has made it hard for Christians to have real in-person relationships? We've talked about, even at this church there, we utilize hybrid, having a live stream, and it really is helpful for those who can't attend church. But do you think it's made it hard for some Christians? You've talked about how sometimes it's used as a crutch, but how has live stream or a hybrid church helped or hurt this current generation? We can touch on it again.
I mean, I think we kind of touched on it. It's good and bad.
Yeah.
I think it does help some people, but you really want to spend most of your time.
I don't think it has to make it hard. It can, if you make it hard, it will be hard, because you can, even with all this technology, we're still here at church worshiping God and learning about God from the pastor. So it's still church with more stuff, because it's just, and the stuff shouldn't be changing it. It's still church, and we're all here. And even if we're not here, we're still learning. And it's only going to make it harder, I think, if you make it harder, which...
Yeah. I feel like I hear it. It makes me think of like, it's about your heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you wanting to worship God, or are you wanting to just stay home and like not have to be around, not be in in-person relationships? And one of the things that we talked about in class was hybrid being a bridge from church to the unchurched. And so people who maybe are scared to even come to church, or scared to step foot in church because they don't even know how it's what happens on a Sunday, it gives them a glimpse of, well, that's not as bad as I thought it was, or I had no idea that that's what they did. And so they kind of get a feel for what church is really like before they have to step in the front door. So we talk about it being the new front door of the church, which I think is can be really helpful, and hopefully more encouraging to bridge the gap from people who are maybe don't go to church or have never been to church. It reaches them where they are and hopefully invites them into in-person relationship where they can be discipled and have the real in-person relationships.
Yeah, I think there are pieces. I know Ministry and Oversight has wrestled with a couple of things. A while back, um, we decided like we're not going to do open worship over the live stream. That's a vulnerable piece that people share vulnerable things, and we felt like that's an in-person experience. And so, for us, we cut off the live stream at the end of the sermon time, and then we go into open worship. I think there are those kinds of pieces that online just can't. You can't, as much as you build a framework for it, they're just not the same. And as I look at the numbers of like how many views we have and those kinds of things, I don't want those to drive us and be the things that are making us make decisions.
Yeah.
Again, I want it to be good quality. I want it to be a place, an open door for folks that might have questions or are curious. But ultimately, the goal is to get them here in person. And I want it to be a place where those who are traveling, because we've got folks that travel for work quite a bit, or who are sick, who we've got lots of littles. And so, if families are sick, they can watch and be a part in that way. So my hope is that it's helpful and that we can do that well. Now, on the flip side of that, I do think, like Barna has a new study saying younger generations don't really want to be on live streams. They want to be in person. And so, what do we do with that? I've jokingly, but kind of seriously, have told Ministry and Oversight, I'd be okay if we just cut the whole thing. Like, if we just focus in on here. But I also acknowledge we've spent money to have equipment and all that kind of stuff. And so, again, as long as it's not taking away from anything, I think we can use it to benefit. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I'm glad you brought up open worship as like a time where it's spirit led, and I do think you can't replicate, or you can't. I don't know. You can't. Not that you can't be a part of that online, but it's really different to be watching that from a screen or watching that in a different place. I think there are certain things about church that just really need to be in person, and I think that's one of those things. Moving on, what do you think has been the hardest to accept about tech in your generation, and how does that affect your church community right now, or our church community?
I don't know. I just had a note that, like, about just being in person and simple, and that Christ isn't looking for all the bells and whistles. I mean, he wants your heart and companionship. I mean, so it's not really about technology. It's about just keeping it simple, even though technology can help in many ways.
It's nice.
Yes. It does make life a little easier sometimes.
Yeah, it's a harder question for me because a lot of the stuff that we do have now, it hasn't been around. It hasn't been around that long, so I don't really have an answer for this question, and I'm not really sure how it would affect the community of the church right now based on what I knew before technology, because there was not a lot. I don't really have any memories before technology.
Sure.
Well, maybe this question will help. You've been to some different size churches.
Oh yeah.
And some that have lots of technology and some that don't have a lot of technology. Does that change how you worship?
No. It shouldn't, but it can.
It can, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The only thing I really don't like is, like, if I'm going to church and then they put a pastor on a video up on the.
I'm glad you brought
I could see like a little message, like a quick announcement or something, but not the whole sermon is another guy that's like somewhere else. That's
we went to.
What are some misunderstandings about how each generation connects online?
I would say one is like people, maybe they don't think this, but that they all view like the same platform. Like
It's all the same
everybody's
content.
looking at, and everybody's
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
apps or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
like where, and then another, because maybe there's the older generations more Facebook, and
Yeah.
some of the other ones are Instagram and TikTok, and then
MySpace. I'm
and
sure.
Oh my God,
yeah,
MySpace.
and notifications.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like, and I don't know this for sure, but I don't want notification. I don't want to know about everything. But Brady gets a notification anytime anybody sneezes. I think.
I turn my I always have my notifications
It's
turned
like,
off.
that's
can't
one
handle that.
common, I think, misunderstanding
Yeah.
is that there's a lot of different things to get to different people
Yeah.
within your congregation.
Yeah.
I think there definitely are misunderstandings in the generations. I think one of the ones I see, and I think, being a millennial, I can remember a day where there wasn't internet, and for the past, I don't know, 30 years, there has been consistently. And so, like, I think about older generations, and as they get online and feel like it's a space where I have to say everything to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like that. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of millennials that don't feel like that. I think, that millennial and younger generation is learning or has learned there's a space to speak into stuff, and there's a space not to speak into stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a misunderstanding. And even with church, we don't have to do everything online. Just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
And so again, there's a space to speak into stuff, or to speak to cultural things. And then there's times where we don't have to, because maybe we do that here in person and not online. I think one of the pastors you're referencing um, would often say, because I've grown up watching him online, this is for our people. This is not for the rest of the world. This is for our church in our part of, Central Texas. This is for our people here. It might resonate with you, but I'm addressing our group right now.
Yeah.
And so I think that too, and I try to do that too. Like I'm preaching to the group in front of me, not to whoever's watching online.
Yeah.
Per se. So.
Yeah, I really liked what you said. You said about the all of the misunderstandings with, if we have all the technology, why aren't we doing everything that we possibly can to use it to its full limits? Because we have it and we should, but it's there to help us with the job we're doing, not the job that we're not doing. So
Are you saying there needs to be an AI pastor?
I'm not saying that. That would be a case of overusing
robotic
technology.
ushers.
iRobot.
Yeah. So
I think one of the misunderstandings that I see is that I think, and this could be my own misunderstanding of a generation, but I think that older generations think that younger generations want everything online or want it to be this big production. And I think we're actually seeing some younger generations not want that at all. And speaking from even my own experience, I don't want that. I want to go to a concert when I want to go to a concert, and I want to worship Sunday morning more in a quiet setting where I can feel the Spirit moving and be able to sit in silence and pray and not feel like it's this huge production. And I've had one of my brothers even say, we were at a bigger church and he's like, it's just really loud. And I think that there's a lot, and we have talked about that before, where it's actually I like the smaller, I like it scaled back. I like to be able to know the people who are in my church and not feel overwhelmed by so many people. And I think that there are a lot of churches that are creating these huge programs and big churches because they think that's what people want. And there are definitely people who want that, but I think it is a misunderstanding that it's the younger generations that want that. But I could be wrong too, and that could be my own misunderstanding of what people think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there was a podcast with Carrie Newhoff and John Mark Comer, and Carrie Newhoff asked why Gen Z and Gen Alpha Catholicism is booming, and there's a lot of converts to it, a lot of younger converts. And John Mark Comer jokingly but seriously said it's because it's quieter.
Yeah.
evangelical church has just become so loud, and there's actually space to think and like meditate on who Jesus is and what he's doing. And the Catholic Church offers that. And so that's speaks a little bit to that, to that piece.
I just have to say that's interesting because apparently they don't know about Quaker churches and where we sit in silence and have a quiet time.
we
like,
do that.
hello, we do that
every
Sunday.
week.
But I think people don't know, they don't know what Quakers are.
And I think there another
and
misconception, and this is not necessarily this is on the production side. Is that for something to be full in terms of sound or like rich, it needs to be loud. And those two are different. Like you can have an acoustic set and it sounds really full and like takes up the space, and it's not loud. And I think I appreciate when worship, and I think we do a great job of it here, is it's not like super loud, but it is full. And so I can kind of get lost in it, in the bigness of God in worship, because I feel it all around me. But it's not like my ears hurt after and I need to go, ice them. And so, that piece to me has always been, and again, maybe that's my dad in the back of my head, who kind of like ingrained that in me. Doesn't need to be super loud to be full. And as a musician, the thing I learned early on was it's not just when I play, or what I play, it's when I don't play. Actually, that matters probably more. And so in the same kind of way, it's not just being loud, but how are we filling that space?
And another thing, which it's kind of to both of your things, is like when she said, I want to go to a concert like this day, and then I want to go to church and hear all the soft music, like hear all like the
like the quiet.
The quieter kind of music in it. Like, but like really loud can be full. And I feel like it, like, not just like, and I feel like you can still experience the Holy Spirit and God moving at like a Christian concert.
Absolutely.
And still feel like you have to ice your ears afterwards.
Because
the only two concerts I've ever been to.
But do you like it every Sunday? I mean,
that's true.
Maybe you would, but
I mean, the only two concerts I've ever been to are Forrest Frank and Crowder, so it's very
those are loud
music.
Or camp. Camp is loud.
And camp is loud.
So,
and there are quiet times, even at camp
What's
too.
the concert we used to go to at Ball State? There was like
we used to go to a Quiet Fire, and it was like, well, and I guess, is there a point of manipulation sometimes when it's loud and creating this really loud space with lots of
lights and
fillers and all that kind of stuff? I think that it can get to a point of manipulating the worship. Like, I want you to feel this way so that you I don't know, are very emotional. But
it's definitely a technological production.
That is, yes.
And music in general makes you feel things. There are literally keys that are sad keys and keys that are happy keys and all kinds of range of emotions. And so, it's easy to take it too far.
Okay. Talking about bridging the gap. What is a way that we can bridge the gap of traditional and digital worship? Whether we talk about hybrid and live stream and social media. What are some ways that we do that? And maybe what are some ways that we could do that better?
So when I think of digital worship, I think of kind of newer, kind of like the artists I said earlier, Forrest Frank, Crowder, Brandon Lake, and some of their songs do sound kind of digital, like kind of a newer sounding.
More modern.
Yeah, so that's what comes to mind when you say digital worship. And I feel like if that's what digital worship is and then traditional worship, I don't know if we need to bridge any gap between them, because they're still, like, people are still trying to connect with God and trying to give people ways to connect to God, even if it's not traditional or what we're used to.
Sure.
But if like you could tell me if like you meant something different for digital worship, but
Sure.
that's what comes to
No,
mind.
I think
for
we're just
digital
talking
worship
about
with
what
it.
it does
Yeah.
mean to, that's a good
Yeah.
point. It might mean something,
For
to somebody
you
else. We're
and
looking at
me
all
for
the
some. So that's just what digital worship is for me. So I don't know if that's the kind of the definition of digital worship for me, then I don't feel like there's any bridging to do between the two.
Do you like singing some of the hymns here? Because we do. We sing some, we sing some contemporary, some modern, and we sing hymns. And you're saying, I mean, some of my favorite things are when like Brandon Lake or Maverick City like has a contemporary song and they put a hymn after that. Like I love that so much. And that to me is a way of bridging.
Exactly.
But I was just curious if you do like singing the hymns, because some of them are really good and some of them,
I think it's good to mix it up and do different, pretty much the same songs. I could remember myself saying, if they would say, we're going to do 1 and 4, and I'd say, all right, we're not doing 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just doing 1 and 4, because it was just like we were just kind of going through the motion.
Yeah.
Where when you have a lot of variety, sometimes you're learning a new song, and that helps you like just get more into the moment where you're listening to something new and with a little bit more upbeat.
Yeah.
When I think of that question, I thought of how do we leverage technology, and so the bridging of the gap for me is how do we, if there are folks out there using all of our digital platforms, social media, our website, YouTube page, whatever, how do we use those as a hub to bring them here ultimately into the church building, into a community in relationship? That's how I want to leverage technology. I want it to be the place where people start, but not where they end or stay. I want them to ultimately get to hear in person, so that we can begin to build a relationship with them. And so that's my hope. Like, are we bridging that gap from the digital online into the in-person, maybe more traditional way of doing church? Because I think there's a lot of fruit there.
Yeah.
I think if this podcast gets out there, people are going to be just lining up to come to church.
Yeah.
You can also follow us on all of our digital platforms: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Westfield Friends.
Well,
subscribe and like.
Or you can come see us at 324
There
South
you go.
Union Street
Oh, there you
at
go.
Westfield,
Very
Indiana.
traditional.
46074.
10:30 every Sunday.
Oh my gosh. I love that. The bringing the digital into the, traditional. And then one thing that we talked about that I don't know. I didn't really think about that. Maybe I did. But when we talk about how church isn't just on Sunday, you can actually use social media to take the church, into Monday, reminding them like, this is what we talked about on Sunday. And I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Like sometimes I just really love it, and sometimes I just really don't like it. And then when we talked about that, I was like, oh, yeah, that's really good. Like that is really, I mean, you should be in community with people, but that is such a good way to remind people that it's not just on Sunday morning. It's not just about, coming into the church on Sunday morning. It is also throughout the whole week. How are we ministering to people outside of the church? And how can we remember what we learned on Sunday and keep applying it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Yep.
And
not just only for a week, but for like forever after that sermon. So.
Absolutely. Okay, looking forward, from my knowledge, the younger generations aren't looking for a production style worship, which we talked about, and they aren't looking for churches with the latest and greatest technology. They're looking for something more scaled back, quieter, more spirit-led, and what I think they're looking for is something that's authentic. This concert style worship can feel very performative, and I actually think that the next generation is seeing that and searching for something more real. I think they're not being fooled by the performative. They want real, the Holy Spirit. They want the Holy Spirit, and they want to feel the Holy Spirit and know that He's present in the room with them. I think the future is truly a digitally hybrid world, both inside the church and outside the church. I think that's the reality that we're living in. Do you think tech has made worship more authentic or more performative?
I think it has made it more performative, and to actually be authentic with it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I think that's true of the comparison that comes to mind is being a musician. You can only get to the point of being so good that you can just improvise whatever after you've put the work in of learning the scales and learning music theory. But all that work comes first, and then the improvisation, thank you, comes later, and actually it's just muscle reflex because you've learned all the things beforehand. So, and I think the same is true. If you can really learn how to leverage the technology and find places and spaces where it fits, and really think through how are we going to use it, then you can set it up in a way where it can just be in the background and people don't actually notice it, and it adds to the experience, doesn't take away from it.
I feel like with tech, I don't think it'll ever add any it won't ever make it more authentic because you're adding more, not doing. I don't know how to describe this because you're not, because authenticity, I feel like, I don't know, for like what we've been describing this whole time. I feel like kind of simplicity is kind of authenticity at this point throughout this whole conversation. So I feel like you're not going to get more simplicity with
more stuff.
Yeah. It's going to get more complicated. So
More things.
I don't think it's going to become more authentic with a lot of technology and a bunch of stuff. But it can become authentic, but it's not going to be more.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I think those are good reasons. I really don't have any.
I agree. I also agree. Yeah. What would it look like for our church to scale back even more and have some Sundays completely tech-free?
Do it.
Do you think our society, not only do you think our church needs this, but do you think society needs this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I also agree.
Yeah.
I think it would be really awesome to have a Sunday a quarter, or every once in a while where even if it was just, I was thinking about it, and even if it's just voices taking the hymnals out, would that look like for you not using an iPad when you preach? Yeah. Or do we do an open worship Sunday, scaling it all the way back to Quaker roots of sitting in silence and waiting on the Spirit to move?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, every week I move into open worship and suggest, hey, sit there for a second. And every week sometimes we can get there for a couple minutes, but we can't get there for very long. And I think it's just because we're uncomfortable with silence.
Sure.
And so, as clerk of ministry and oversight, Scott has said, hey, if the Holy Spirit leads you, we don't have to, even if your sermon's done, even if the worship's ready, we don't have to do any of that. We can, and I appreciate that space. And there have been a couple of Sundays where I really wrestled, is this what the Holy Spirit was asking us to do this morning? Mainly as responses to cultural things going on. And sometimes it just I haven't fully felt like that's where he's leading.
Sure.
And maybe one day he will. And maybe it's going to be more intentional.
Yeah.
Maybe as we go through the practice of Sabbath, we say, hey, this Sunday, we're just going to have open worship and we're going to sit in silence until the Holy Spirit leads us. So I don't know.
I think we do a pretty good job not letting tech take over stuff. So we keep it pretty. I mean, there's a lot of discussion before anything moves to the next phase,
and a lot of extra time.
Yes.
Just need to be really sure about it. Oh, I like that. I think it's something to talk about. It was funny, we were talking about it, and Amy, your wife, and your mom said, well, do we have lights even? Because that's technology.
Yeah.
We sit in the dark. I was like, yeah.
Well, then we have remember our stained windows, so
it's light,
and we're talking about the natural light earlier, so
simple.
I would like to one day go sit in a silent like unprogrammed worship meeting and see what it's like. And hard part about that is we could get into some spaces that are questionable in terms of theology. And so how do I find, I'd like to find a space where that, might take place and experience that, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Just a thought. What are some ways we can better disciple the next generation through this fast-moving digital age?
I think Josh has talked a little bit about this in his sermons, just like stress slowing down and sitting quietly during the day. Like he just mentioned, that a lot of us can't just sit there and for even 5 minutes without. And I think that's one bad thing technology has done, is that now you have to check your phone every so often or whatever. You have to, see what's going on, where just sit silent and, just take that time during the day to just rest without falling asleep and taking a nap.
Yeah.
We just had a screen-free week, tech-free week.
Very painful on
ASA.
On ASA, not you. It wasn't painful for you.
No,
but it's hard.
Really good.
You like
it's
it.
hard,
That's
right?
amazing. Yeah.
And we remember when we do that, because we do it every once in a while. We remember all the things we can do
months or so
without technology,
and then we don't realize it when we have it.
Yeah.
And I think like us going through practicing the way is kind of really building that,
Yeah.
I can't think of the word right now, but just like making yourself do something that discipline, yes. Building that discipline that takes practice, practicing the way. It takes practice that, things in sports don't come naturally. You got to practice.
And I feel like for this question in particular, I feel like there's not, I don't really know how to describe this, because we've been we started discipling when Jesus was on earth, and we've discipled throughout all the ages until now, and more technology was being made ever since then. So I feel like we shouldn't be changing how we're discipling based on what's coming. I feel like we should be discipling based on, well, kind of what's coming for who we're discipling, but not on what's coming around, like in the world right now. We need to be focused on discipling and not focused on what else is going to be a distraction, because there is always going to be more stuff, because everything that we have now is we didn't have when 50 years ago, and everything when we had 50 years ago, we didn't have that when like America was being founded, and it's just a bunch of different stuff, and I feel like we shouldn't be changing anything based on new stuff, because we've been doing Jesus started it all the way back in around 30 AD, so it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. I like that.
Like it should be about following Jesus, not following
it shouldn't
all
be
the things.
based on anything else.
When I think about that question, I think about being a dad and a parent, and think about my kids, Jaden being the oldest one, but living in a world where there has always been and will always be technology, and faster and faster and faster. I mean, you would have broken a lot of controls if you grew up when we had the internet and it was so slow. And I am trying to, like Scott said, we're in our home, like it's how can we make space to slow down? And so those tech-free weeks are some of those ways, just to remind ourselves like we don't need this stuff. We need Jesus. And so,
yeah, I think about setting, when I think about discipling or helping the next generation, I just think about setting the example. Like, how am I going to use technology, or how am I going to let it influence my walk with Jesus? And then how can I show my kids, like you said, like how can I show my kids how to steward it well and how to not let it overtake my life, and just still be able to walk with them in that, or walk with, and I think for me too, I just thought like making it intentional to be in person with the next room, taking them out to lunch. People did that for me. Instead of, people did reach out and send me text or over, whatever, over social media. But even today, like, got to take somebody out to lunch and just sit and talk with them. And I think that can get lost in, well, I texted them, or well, I sent them, I shot them a text or sent them an email. I think it's the face-to-face conversations, just creating that space to be together in fellowship will be a really big way that we can slow things down and be in fellowship with the next generations after us. I just have some fun bonus questions. Bonus. Why not?
Like a 2-hour podcast.
No, we have time. Let's see. What are some ways technology? Well, I would say, what are some ways that technology has shaped your personal spiritual life? What are some tools you can share with others that have helped you in your spiritual life?
Yeah, I can start there.
Sure.
So as a church, we've gone through Practicing the Way, and one of the tools on the Practicing the Way website that's free, and you can go and just sign up for it. It's a rule of life builder. And so there's another tool on there called Spiritual Reflection, which is like a survey that you answer a bunch of questions. And what it spits out is like, hey, here might be some spiritual disciplines to think about. You answered in certain ways. And so, fasting might be a good one. When you're saying you feel distracted, well, you can set aside some time of fasting to kind of refocus you on Jesus. And then the Rule of Life Builder lets you kind of map that out for a daily routine, a weekly routine, a monthly routine, and an annual routine. And so that's just been helpful for me to kind of have it on paper, to keep myself accountable, but also to remember, like, oh yeah, it's Wednesday, I got to fast today, or it's and I don't always do them all the time. Lately I've been really bad about doing them, but prayer with the Lectio 360 app is an easy one, and I can listen to it right when I get up, as I'm getting ready at lunchtime, and right before I go to bed, and I can just listen, or I can read. Often I just listen as I'm just sitting, and so those pieces, they're helping me to stay disciplined. Now, if it becomes the thing, then I've gone too far. But they are helpful for me.
Very basic answer. Probably the Bible.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because after camp this last year, it was about everything leading up to. So everything leading up to the birth of Jesus and kind of the Gospels. So coming home and reading all the Gospels is just really refreshing and really interesting to dive into those and think about, like, all of the stuff that Jesus went through. Is really cool.
Now, do you read a page paper Bible, or do you read it?
I read a regular Bible.
Yeah, a regular Bible. I like that.
Technology had to print those.
You're right. I was just curious. I mean, I was just asking.
Hey, by hand.
Well, then Gutenberg, printed all of them. Everybody got one in their house.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the same stuff. I think mostly traditional stuff has shaped my spiritual life. But
Yeah. I would say, oh, were you finished? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, some tools that have really been beneficial more recently have been that Lectio 360, the guided prayer. It has some quiet time, like quiet moments built into the prayers. And honestly, Apple Music. I like to worship on Apple Music with no interruptions of ads. So I will pay, a couple dollars just to be able to worship in my car without interruption. I mean, I listen to the radio too, but being on the worship team, that is a really, I don't know.
Yeah.
That is a way that shapes my spiritual life and helps me to feel more connected to God always has been through music. And so anything that I can sing and pour my heart out to Him is helpful for me. So what is one piece of technology you feel you can't live without? I mean, you could live without it, but you don't want to.
Computer.
Oh, okay.
I read all my school papers. Sometimes use it to shop online and watch stuff on it. So
Yeah.
it's a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
For me right now, it's my iPad. I've got a lot of books to read for class, and they all live in my Kindle app. And so they're just always with me, and I can pull it out if I'm waiting for something or we had appointments, and so I pulled it out and read. I could live without it, but then I'd have to carry a bunch of books, and that's annoying. So
That would be fun
Or
to
if
see
you
you
just go one book at a
carry.
time.
I could go one book at a time. But
Yeah,
I feel like you're
that's
not
not fun.
reading a whole book, waiting for an appointment.
yeah, but every little
3-minute
second,
appointment.
every little second counts.
You might.
3 minutes
Yeah, I'd
waiting in
say
the waiting room.
computer. Also.
Your computer.
But then there's also the TV. And there's also
Yeah.
He's like,
phone
The phone,
and
yeah.
Excel.
And Excel.
My
Yeah.
computer.
What about you? What?
Mine is probably my phone. I also have a love-hate relationship with that. But even in my day-to-day job, that's how I trick people out. That's
Yeah.
how I make my living is through apps on my phone and listening to music on my phone and reading the Bible on my phone. I could do without all of that, and I could make it work, but it probably would be my phone.
And once upon a time, people did.
Yeah.
I don't know how. But they did.
I don't either.
Yeah.
very grateful.
Yeah. I mean, I remember probably when you guys got, cell
Our
phones
flip
for the
phones.
yeah.
I've thought about going back to a flip phone. Amy says, I dare you.
I dare you too.
I don't want to.
But I'm gonna get a flip phone.
I
Flip
might,
phones.
but the texting is like you got to hit
The
the
T9.
Just have to call everybody.
4 times if you want to.
They've got like a new BlackBerry one that has the full keyboard.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
go back to that.
That's new.
Yeah, because it's like they don't
Oh,
make
because it's
them
a
anymore.
flip.
No, it's like the old Blackberries, but
Yeah.
BlackBerry doesn't exist. But some other company has like
I
a
remember having a BlackBerry.
fake one.
Interesting.
Anyways,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys
yeah. Thank you.
so much for
Thanks for
being
having
part
us
of
on
this.
the pod.
Yep.
Yeah.
on the pod. Yeah. It's coming out every week.
There you go.
No, it's not. We can be done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hope you
Yep.
get an A.
Yeah.
Probably. No.
Teacher.
Teacher.